Hi Renata, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hi, here.
Oh, hi, great. So we are more than 100 people are here, and it's a great privilege for us to meet you through Skype. And, а вот там у тебя микрофончик, вот, проводной я тебе говорил. Проводной микрофончик прямо лежит. Вот смотри где, Максим. Максим, вот, молодец. Максим is taking a mic to translate.
Perfect.
Сейчас, одну минуточку, Олег представит своего друга и наставницу Ренату Мюрез. Олег will introduce you, Рената.
Алло, здравствуйте. Меня зовут Олег Шмырин. Я хочу представить Ренату Мюрез. Она ученица Карлосе Кастанеде, Флориды Дона Грау, Тэши Беляк и Первая. Свое обучение она начала в 1998 году, то есть оно продолжалось более 10 лет. И началось оно в магазине «Феникс» в Санта-Монике, штат Аризона, Калифорния. И сейчас продолжает обучение у Карлосе. У Ренаты Мюрез два образования. Первое образование – это она магистр английского языка в Калифорнийском государственном университете, в Нотр-Даме она преподавала. Также она бакалавр по биохимии в университете УПА и работала с известным психиатром и психологом Лиси Джарри. Сейчас Рената Мюрез старший инструктор и ведущая Тенсегрити, творческий директор Первая. Первая – это организация, которая создана в Кастанеде для популяризации и хранения его знаний. Также Рената Мюрез известна многим по первым видео Тенсегрити, и она состояла в команде вместе с Мюрез, в команде, которая адаптировала древние магические пассы и другие упражнения для того, чтобы преподавать в современной форме Тенсегрити. И это то, что сейчас преподается на семинарах.
Спасибо большое, Олег. Благодаря инициативе Олега у нас есть возможность сейчас послушать Ренату и задать ей вопросы. Can you translate, Максим? I appreciate Oleg's initiative to connect with you during this event. So thank you so much. I see it's morning in California.
It is morning in California. Yes, yes. Is Maxim ready?
Yeah, Maxim is ready. And so we turn off light here since we are screening our Skype sessions on big screen.
Okay. Well, can I begin by saying good evening to all of you? And I really appreciate this opportunity of speaking about the teacher. I have been able to listen to part of your conference, and I can tell that you're an audience or collection of people who really have a deep understanding of his work. And so I wanted to begin my short story about some of my personal experiences with him, which might be interesting to you, and how he taught us his apprentices. And then afterwards, we're going to open it up to questions and answers.
Yes, please.
So, okay. Yes, so I met Carlos Castaneda in 1988, and this was a time in my life when I was looking at a lot of spiritual schools, a lot of mystical schools, and I had, tried meditation, and I had tried South American schools and this kind of thing. And I think I'm one of the most unlikely apprentices there is of Carlos Castaneda, because one day my girlfriend, calls me up in the evening and says, hey, Carlos Castaneda is giving a lecture at the bookstore. I'm like, oh. And so I said, well, sure, let's go. Let's go, I'll be there. So she and I are sitting in the bookstore, and in walks this seemingly unassuming man. He's kind of on the short side. He's very reflective. He's kind of dark curly hair, etc. I think you've all seen the pictures of him. But yet his presence, his extreme presence, just completely filled the room. And it was a small collection of people, maybe about 30 people. And he had the effect of completely silencing everybody in the audience. It was like everybody became transfixed on what he was saying and what he was explaining. And of course he talked about his experiences with Don Han and the Yaqui Indians, etc., etc. And then after this lecture, he asked if anyone was interested in doing movement with him in the park that Saturday. So, my girlfriend and I looked at each other and we go, sure. We signed our names, we put our phone number down. And so we went to the park. And we were there with, again, maybe about 30 people. And we were doing these movements. And as I said, I had been to so many other spiritual schools, but when I did these movements, I had this incredible feeling of vitality come to me, and this incredible alertness and this incredible focus. And I was just like, wow, is this what it feels like to be alive? And after that class, a lot of people came and asked Carlos questions. And my girlfriend and I were rather shy, and then he kind of motioned over to us at the end when everybody else had thinned out. And he said to me, and he goes, I can see your energy, and he goes, look like you've had a lot of wear and tear in your life. Your energy is very low. You're at a low point. He goes, would you like to come to some of my future classes and help restore your energy? So of course I said yes. My girlfriend and I were invited to, excuse me, his other classes, which of course had Carol Tiggs and Florida Donna Grau and Taisha Avalar and Scout, etc., and himself and a couple other people that I hadn't quite known yet. But that's pretty much my introduction to him. Now, a lot of people are interested in how he taught and what he taught, because I think we all assume from reading his books that he might have taught like Don Juan, like he would sit next to us for hours and tell us the mysteries of the universe, That was kind of what we were expecting, and it was very, very different. He would tell us that, he goes, I've written so many mysteries and I've written so many stories in these books. He goes, if you want more stories, if you want more how the energy of the rolling fours, how the energy of the earth works, how the energy of the stars, and he goes, go read the books. He goes, but at this point in my life, because he knew that his end was coming, and he would always tell us, he says, it's 1 minute to 12, 1 minute to 12, 1 minute to midnight, meaning midnight goes to disappear. So he was really interested in people who were going to do his work, and in doing the work and in experiencing his work physically and themselves, that they would then have knowledge of his work. So this was the approach. It was a very action-oriented, doing-oriented kind of thing. And so it was a grand departure from the way he had taught maybe some of his older apprentices that had come before us, whom he had lectured with and told stories to. This last group, which I was in, it was like we were the action figures, okay? So the first thing that he noticed about us was that we had very little energy, very little awareness, you would say, very little consciousness. And so he realized that in order for us to be able to understand the concepts of which he was speaking, to deeply hold on to them, that we need a different kind of energy than the normal energy of everyday life. So therefore, Carol Tiggs thought, well, why don't we teach all these people in this classroom, these movements one had taught them, but which they had not really focused on so much before. So, we had these classes of movements, and we felt, oh my gosh, you felt like you were, you felt like you were 19 years old at the end of those classes. Just kind of floated out, on these movements. And then another practice which we had was, I think you've probably talked about in your seminar, is the recapitulation. And that is, the list of everyone you know, and sitting down, remembering everybody you know, and breathing in the energy, so the energy returns back to you. And what's left then is just this tiny little shell of a memory. Yes, you have memories, but they don't hold you, they don't attach to you. And they don't move you to that nostalgia or that emotional content anymore. They just become replete of emotional content. And this was, yes, the way of erasing personal history. And so we all did this. Carlos was very keen on trying to mirror some of the things with us that Don Juan had done to him. And so there was this thing that Don Juan did to him, and that was, you know, Carlos would go down to Mexico and visit Don Juan for a couple of weeks, and he'd come back to Los Angeles. And, you know, he'd be this college student and everything. He was for a couple months. And Carlos would again have to do his homework. You know, he'd have to do his own movement, he'd have to do his own recapitulation, etc., or whatever the teachings Don Juan told him to do. And then he'd go back to Mexico for more teachings. And so when Carlos would return to visit Don Juan, you know, Carlos would tell Don Juan all the stories of his recapitulation. You know, the many times he was married, many times he was in love, many times of, you know, his childhood and his time in Los Angeles, etc. And Don Juan then would make jokes about it. And, you know, in front of Gorda and Nestor and Pablito, etc., and the little sisters, you know, he would tell all these stories about Carlos Castaneda's past, and everybody would be laughing, and Carlos would be standing there feeling like he's 2 inches tall. But this was a way in that tradition to lose self-importance. But this was the idea that if anything could be told about you, positively or negatively, then you know, and you could be unemotional about it, that was the place to go. So, of course, this was tried on me. You know, I may have attended maybe 10 classes with Carlos and his group, and I had been recapitulating very fiercely every night. I'm kind of a person, when I find something I love and it truly did speak to me, that I really do it. So, so I'm walking into class, extremely unassuming, and Carlos then, he would call me every morning at about 7 o'clock before I went to work, and he goes, "Children, tell me what you recapitulated, tell me what you learned, tell me what you saw." And so I download, you know. And so I walk into this class, and he starts telling the stories of my life to everybody there. And just like he had felt with Don Juan, I felt 2 inches tall. And everybody in the room was laughing, because we all know that Carlos can tell any story perfectly, you know. And I had to say that my self-importance was so large that the first couple times this happened to me, and it happened many times, that I had to run very fast to the restroom because I had complete diarrhea. Everything was out. Everything, all my self-importance was coming out. So that was another way of Carlos's kind of teaching us and getting rid of this personal history, this identity of I'm just one way. I'm just the one way that my parents taught me to be, or the one way that I was socialized. Other ways that he would teach us was he would invite small groups of us over to his house, and we would do extremely or seemingly mundane things. We would break leaves in the yard. We would, how do you say it? He would before he was Carlos Castaneda, he was a sculptor. He was an artist with his hands. So he was very good with his hands. And so he, in his later years, he turned that into carpentry. And so we'd go over to his house, and we would make these tool sheds, we would make these benches, or we would make these shelving for the library of the house. It's like the house, his house in which he lived with Taisha and Florinda and Carol, was always in evolution, just like he is. He's always growing, was always changing. So we would go over on the weekends in small groups, and he'd give us, we would help him construct things around the house. And this was, again, a very unusual experience, because, he gave very little direction, and we mimicked him. We did what he did. And this is how we assembled things. And we really were asked at a very deep and maybe unconscious level or subconscious level to really mimic his mood. And his mood was one of extreme silence. There was no interior dialogue except that of the project. This project was the first and the last and the most important thing in his life, and in our lives. This in front of him was everything. And so in this way, really taught us how to be in the present moment and how to put everything we have into now. And because, you know, internal dialogue, you're not judging anything, you're not holding anything back, you're just in the moment. And everything is very real. So then there were other times, because I think another part of the teachings was dreaming. And this, in our tradition, we dream awake and we dream asleep, in the sense that dreaming for us is a shift of perception from ordinary reality to non-ordinary reality, or heightened awareness, however you would call it. And he would always tell us, he'd say, you know, he goes, when you have enough energy, when you have enough energy from movements, when you have enough energy from recapitulation, when you've got enough energy returned back to you, you will be able to dream quite, you know, on your own. But in order for us to kind of, you know, start this ourselves, he would take us on, I think you would call trips. Kind of, you know, different hours of the night, you know, say around 2 o'clock in the night, he'd call a couple of us and he said, you know, Chola, come over, we're gonna go for a drive, okay? He'd always use the excuse, he goes, oh, Florinda needs something. And I go, okay, 2 o'clock in the morning, sure, I'm there. You know, myself and a couple others, we all pile into his truck, and he had this little beige pickup truck, and he drove, you know, he's behind the wheel, you know. He's kind of a short man, so this wheel is really big. And we're driving through these streets of Los Angeles, and, you know, we kind of know where we're going, but all of a sudden things start looking very strange. They don't look recognizable anymore. And we drive over a stone bridge, and then Carlos stops in front of what looks like from the exterior as a dance hall. And, you know, and all these people are standing in line, all these people are coming and going, and there's a lot of light, and there's a lot of noise, and lots of music coming from this place. And he goes, look inside. When I drive by, look inside and see. And so we all, you know, we drive by, we all look inside. There's all these lights, and there's all these people dancing and having a whole lot of fun, okay? And then he just drives away, and he goes, well, we got what Florinda wanted, and so let's go back home. So we would then go back home, and then some of us the next day went, let's try to find this place ourselves. You know what I mean? And so, you know, we get in our car, and the next morning, you know, just us apprentices, we drive through the streets, and we're here. And this was, what was there the next morning was a dilapidated old building that had been for 20 or 30 years. And an old sign hanging off of it. You know, an old sign, which the night before had upright, it says Virginia's. And the morning after, it was this old sign hanging. It had, all the letters were all eradicated, and you might have had a V, a first big V. And so we just go, oops, you know, let's just go back home and never mention this again, you know. And so we knew then that that he had been on a trip, on a, you know, and we were doing these excursions or having all of these paranormal experiences without substance. I think everyone is familiar that in the first probably 2 or 3 books, Carlos was given substances by Don Juan for various reasons. And then afterwards, he was no longer using substances. And, you know, Taisha and Florinda and Carol were not given substances, and neither were any of us. And we were able to have these paranormal experiences simply by doing the tools of this amazing lineage. And so these kinds of, we were kind of all engaged in this, and this was going on until about 1993. And, you know, Carlos and Carol were very impressed with how these movements changed us and how they gave us all this energy. And so we said, well, gosh, why don't we expand this to other people? Why don't we take this to a more public venue? because Carlos, as you know, had written all these books. He had, educated the population or brought his work out in his books. But by this time of his life, he wanted something practical. He wanted to leave. He wanted to die, knowing that someone or some group of people was doing his work. And he had the wall. He wasn't going to be, start a small grand group of people that would then have another small people. That's not what he knew that. But he thought that this work was so precious to him, was such a gift, that he really wanted to give to the world. So in 1993, he started having seminars in which, in Northern California, small ones, 30 people, and they grow up to 100 people, etc. And then, he opened up Clear Green in 1995, the company that still exists, gives seminars currently. And that's, and he titled all of this Tensegriti, which is really, when you look at the term of Buckminster Fuller, it's about the interlinking and the interconnectivity of natural systems. And what he liked about that was that when he was watching us, when he was leading us those movement sessions, he could see that each one of us, because we were doing these movements of this lineage, were actually connected to each other. And he realized that this would be our strength, that the people that followed him doing this, actually doing this work, that would be their strength, is because they would be connected to each other in these very mystical and energetic ways. So he therefore called his work, his work to the public, Tensegriti, which very, very much is us teaching it today, to try to give it as seamlessly and as a mirror of the way we were taught ourselves. So, right, so I think, it's summing up what Carlos Castaneda gave. I mean, he gave me personal things, and he gave things to the world. You see, he believed by own experience, and so therefore it was outside of the realm of belief. We only believe when it has not been proven. But he proved by his own experience that each and every human being had this possibility of reaching, through the methods of the ancient seers, to this other side of themselves. To this other side of themselves that is energetically connected to everything in the world. That is the piece of us that reads energy, called it the energy body. And we all reach this state. We can all reach this other piece of ourselves. And he used to have this story about a man who had this big keg of water on his back, and he goes, humanity is like a man, a thirsty man walking in the desert with a big keg of water on his back. And the man, who's thirsty, doesn't realize there's a keg of water. And he goes, that's like all of us. We don't know we have an energy body. We don't know that we live first in this world, this very physical world, in the terms of energy first, and then the layer of physicality and the layer of all of our five senses is laid in on top of that. Because you don't realize that. And he goes, what Tensegriti does to that man in the desert is he takes the keg off and he starts drinking the water. He starts being nourished by this. And so when one does the tools of Tensegriti, this is what one feels. One feels extremely rejuvenated. Like I said before, your mind is extremely clear and focused, just like focusing on that library, making that library bench, just like focusing on writing a book, whatever. Extreme focus. From the recapitulation, a person gets this balance of your emotions. Things happen in your life, and yes, good and bad things, if you were to judge them, happen in your life. But you're not in emotional turmoil over them. They're happening, you're dealing with them, and life goes on. And then, so mind clear, emotions stable, and body extremely fit. I think everyone, I'm only going to speak about Carlos, but how old he was or how old he was not was always a question, because the doing of this work makes you look years younger than what you really are. So I think I agree with a lot of you, and I personally feel that Carlos Castaneda gave such a tremendous gift to this world. And he opened up the doors to what he called the second attention, the other realms of the onion, the other layers of the onion, for all of us with these tools to go and pursue, cruise, and because that's really, you know, our birthright. So, you know, but maybe we open up a time now for questions. Is that what?
I think I think it's time for a question now. Thank you so much, Rimi, again for being with us and for this great introduction into your experience with Carlos. У кого есть вопросы к Ренате? Да, пожалуйста, сюда подходите, чтобы можно было с микрофоном. Вот там микрофончик на столе лежит. Вот, нет, вот на столе лежит, да. Очень коротко и по сути, один вопрос задавайте.
А я постараюсь ответить. Меня зовут Рената. Я хотел узнать... Тот микрофон, потому что в этом не слышно. Я хотел узнать, что Карлос Кастанеде говорил о колесе времени и как оно вообще влияет на физиологию, на функции организма человеческого.
So, my name is Amir, and I would like to know what Carlos Castaneda said about the wheel of time and how the wheel of time influences the human body and the human life. Thank you.
So I heard very little of that in English.
The question was about the wheel of time and how it influences human body.
The wheel of time and how it influenced the human body. Correct? Okay. So I think you're probably getting that concept from his book, The Wheel of Time. And the Wheel of Time is a state that one reaches when one is in dreaming. And when you enter that dream space, and for many times when you're a little more sophisticated dreamer, you will see a corridor, or you will see a circular space, and you will see a corridor or this circular space with lots of doorways, lots of channels, lots and lots and lots of opportunities. And then you realize that, oh my gosh, perception is multiple. You know what I mean? That we are, because we're how do you say it, raised very physically, and we're socialized very physically, we are just looking down one little channel, but yet there's all of these channels to actually explore with our perception, with our expanded awareness. So the question is, how does this affect the body? And I would think I would expand that question to, how does dreaming affect the body? How does dreaming awake, dreaming asleep affect the body? Because this is an act of dreaming awake or dreaming asleep. And dreaming, okay, when you're in dreaming, if, so when you're in dreaming, you're with your energy body. In our tradition, we call that when we enter the dream space, whether it's waking or sleeping, our energy body is the one that is with us then. Our energy body is the one that's seeing, feeling, and sensing this new energetic environment, which in normal awareness we don't usually have. And so the body physically feels like it has all of its energy, finally. You've been crawling around most of your life with just maybe half of your energy. But when you're in these spaces, you feel your energy body. Yes, you have a physical body still, but so much of your awareness is with your energy body that you actually feel like you're starting to vibrate, like you are your energy body, that this is, that you have this vibratory awareness, and this vibratory awareness will allow you to go through all these multiple doorways. If you're asking if people can be healed by this, because again, I'm trying to assume some of the questions you may ask. I mean, Carl, if a person is able to sustain by their will to reach their energy body, and after a period of time of doing this work, you will be able to do that, then you'll be able to use that energy to heal the physical form, okay? the most dramatic case in point was we all know that Carlos had liver cancer these last years of his life. And he was an absolute master in being able to have enough energy to give to his apprentices, enough energy to write another 4 or 5 books, enough energy, and enough energy to heal himself. Because, and again, he knew he was dying. He knew his trip to infinity was come really soon, so he had to save enough energy for that. So, but every time he went to the doctors, he'd go to the doctors and they'd do all this blood work, you know, and the blood work would show, you don't have liver cancer, everything's normal, completely normal numbers. But then when they did like biopsies, they go, oh yes. You know, so he had been able, even though he was doing all these many varieties of things, energy this way, he was able to use the energy from his energy body to regulate his physical form. Now, would take some practice.
Oh yeah, really. Thank you so much. Next question. Следующий вопрос, пожалуйста. Next question. Ну, в микрофончик.
Доброе утро.
Good morning.
Такой вопрос. У нас существует много людей, которые считают, что практика Тенсегрити...
We have many people who believe that Tенсегрити practice is not effective.
Поэтому они практикуют.
At the same time, they are practicing Tенсегрити. They are practicing Tенсегрити. Can you comment on this?
Yes. So people are practicing Tensegrity and people might not find it effective. I know that there are different groups of people who... Was that the end of the question? Oh, okay. There's different groups of people who call themselves as practicing Tensegrity. And there's people who read the books and then practice Tensegrity kind of by themselves, reading these books. And that's a way of practicing Tensegrity. And then there's other people that would attend the seminars and then they practice Tensegrity through following the seminars. And what I have found from people who have practiced Tensegrity from merely reading the books is that those books are really hard to interpret for a normal person. And they bring a lot of mixed or mass interpretations to them. And, you know, this is the reason why, you know, the seminars began, was because we were taught to interpret all those stories. What does all this mean? Why is it practical? Why do you want to do it? And let's do it. So I'm very familiar with people that come to the seminar. They do feel affected by it. They do have that euphoria state. They do see changes of experiences in their lives. And it's very rare that maybe 1 or 2 people in the audience, rare though, doesn't get affected, doesn't have this feeling. And Tensegrity, because it has so many pieces, like I said, it's more than the movements. You really have to do the recapitulation. And a lot of people do the movements and don't do the recapitulation. And therefore, what happens then is if you're just doing the movements, you're getting to your energy body, and it tends to come to you, and it tends to how do you say it? Almost enhance your current ego. And so you really need to do the recapitulation and erase that personal history, because then you'll be empty. And so when you do those movements of your magical passes and your energy body comes over you, then it'll stay. It'll stay because you have you're empty. And it has something to fill in you. So I think that the question of some people do Tensegrity and some don't, you really have to dissect that question a little bit. And that's what I tried to do here. And that, you know, I think, and to get the full benefits out of Tensegrity, one really has to do the full package. I would suggest don't try to. Don't just pick one favorite piece of yours and do that.